those companies have chosen, in case of Google, they're saying not going back to the office.
Exactly, till
in America until June 30th, 2021.
We're battling slightly with the line, Sir Martins. Let me ask you this very finally. The Centre for Economics and Business Research have said that the cost of lockdown to ghost town London's hospitality sector is at £25 million per day. What is the best argument you've got, or an argument that you've heard, for persuading people to come back to the office to try and keep those economies going?
Well, I think the argument that people say is that the cultures of companies are maintained or developed by people having conversations over the water cooler or being together and being able to exchange ideas and so on. I'm not of that view. I'm of the view that we are going to see a significant change in work patterns, and working from home will actually be equally efficient, or maybe even more efficient, and dispersed working. Cities. The strength of cities, the attraction of cities are going to vary. For example, in the United States, New York and Chicago may become less attractive, and places like Boston, where life sciences and technology are so strong, or even parts of the West Coast, Denver, Austin, city centres that were doing well, even better because people find them much more attractive.
And places and possibly affordable, frankly, given the house prices certainly in London. Sir Martin, thank you so much. Sir Martin Sorrell, you're founder and executive chairman of S4 Capital, founder of WPP, the world's largest advertising and PR group. 12 minutes past 7. Andrew Oswald is Professor of Economics and Behavioural Science at the University of Warwick. Welcome to the programme this morning, Professor. This could be catastrophic for city centre economies, couldn't it, if British people do not get back to the office sometime soon?
It will certainly change the face of city centres. I'm afraid will be hard on people, especially in the hospitality industry. The reason, of course, people are not going back now is they're scared. There's been so much bad publicity in the United Kingdom, and the young half of the population actually are incredibly safe against this virus. Only about 300 British people have died under the age of 40, about 300 very sadly. But every year in a normal year, about 1,000 die on the roads in that age group, and we don't close the roads. So people misunderstand at the moment, if they're in a young half, that the risk is not as bad as they thought. However, I think taking a long view, COVID-19 has pressed the reset button, you might say, on how we're going to live and work in the future. Although it's a terrible thing, some good will come out of it. People are benefiting a lot from
it may do, Professor, but listen, we are saying this sitting here, not working at one of the cafe bars or sandwich shops that are open and ready to rock in certain city centres. They are going to lose their jobs. This is millions of people. It's very easy for us to sit here and say, well, this is change, deal with it.
Yes, I'm really terribly sorry about that. For years I worked at the London School of Economics, and I used to have a fantastic breakfast near the school. I really do feel for those workers. Unfortunately, difficult to see an immediate solution to that, but I do feel the government should help out that kind of employee. People like me who can sit behind a computer screen at old age have it very easy, and young people, especially in hospitality and restaurants, do not.
Andrew Oswald, Professor of Economics and Behavioural Science at the University of Warwick. Thank you for your time. Listening to that is Richard Tice, businessman, chairman of the Brexit Party, former MEP for East England. Welcome to the programme this morning, Mr. Tice. Do you feel that this is just the process of change? We are going to see more people working from home. Let's deal with it. Good morning.
Good morning, and it's a grey morning, and there's a grey power hanging over all our major capitals, major cities, city centres, because there is a seismic change going on. I think the horse has bolted, and we are going to have to deal with it, and it is going to be very difficult. And what the government needs to do, it's going to have to adjust and incentivise and encourage people back into the city centre. Well, I think first of all, it's got to stop scaring. Fortunately, this terrible disease actually now, less people are tragically dying from it than from flu or pneumonia. It is completely under control. So we've got to incentivise people to get back. But I think with London, for example, I think the government should say, have a campaign, London is open. It should make tubes, trains, buses free for 6 months. And it'd be free, right? Yeah, free, literally. Well, it's already free, essentially, because it's not free, but it's not. The government, Transport for London, Tom, is bankrupt. It's been nationalised. All of the trains across the country have been nationalised. Okay, there's nobody on them. I caught the train the other day. I had the carriage to myself.
Well, you've just heard Sir Martin Sorrell. You've just heard Sir Martin Sorrell say that he feels that government transport policy, local government transport policy, is incredibly confusing, particularly things like the congestion charge in London that has been increased. He wanted to see it go down.
Exactly. So you've got to incentivise people to come back into the city centre. If you make the transport free for 6 months, the government must lead by example. There's hundreds of thousands of civil servants that need to come back into the office permanently. If not, then let them go. Plenty of other people who can get a job.
You would get rid of people who don't come back into the office.
Yeah, and actually, it may well be you'll
We're
end
going to
up...
have to get rid of an awful lot of workers, Mr. Tice, on the proportions that we're seeing from this survey. You know, it's 66% of workers.
As you've seen, hundreds of thousands of people are losing their jobs in the related service activities that look after and service the office workers. Firms like the Daily Mail.
What reason would you sack them? What's the reason for sacking them?
Because the government has got to, it's got to lead by example. You know, we're talking. If we don't do this, the economy is just going to literally go down, continue to go down a vicious spiral into the kitchen sink. This is really, really serious. It's a question of incentivising people, and I think there is a real productivity issue with people working from home. And we've got to lead by example, and it's not good enough for people like the Daily Mail to berate firms for not going back when their own staff are sitting at home as well.
Mr. Tice, Richard Tice, you're a businessman, you're chairman of the Brexit Party, former MEP for East England. Many thanks indeed for your time. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, I think it is right to say that the horse has bolted on this. Pandora's box has been opened. I cannot see how an argument that says, right, come back into the office or you'll be sacked, is going to go down well, or indeed is going to be not caught up in all kinds of legal challenge. But the idea too of saying, right, you've got to come back in to spend your money in the sandwich shops and the cafes and the bars and the clubs and stuff. No, you've got to spend your money because you've got to keep the train companies going because you're paying absolutely through the nose for a season ticket, four grand, 4.5, 5 grand some places. No, if you are as productive and as effective working from home, your time has come. You might have to go into the office 2 days a week, maybe 3 days a week. But the idea that we're going to go back to how it was before the pandemic is rubbish. It's not going to happen. And anyone who's arguing for the old way is misreading how the change is going to be impacted, how that change is going to impact people. You are missing how this change is going to affect people. 0345 6060 973. Come on to your thoughts on that in just a few moments' time. Plus,
Aberdeen has spent its first night in local lockdown. I'm LBC's Phil McDonald in the city with the latest.
we're live in the Granite City as the local lockdown is imposed. Tom Swarbrick in for Nick Ferrari at breakfast here on LBC. News headlines now, 7:19.
The Bank of England has just announced it's leaving interest rates unchanged at their record low of 0.1%. Investigators are searching the wreckage of Beirut's ports for clues to the cause of the massive explosion on Tuesday. And a new study's found coronavirus infection rates in England continue to decline even after some lockdown restrictions were lifted. The weather dry and very warm with sunny spells for most, a high of 28 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. With these big problems for the A13 do continue. It's closed eastbound at the Beckton flyover because of an accident, and there are delays back to Prince Regent Lane. In Surbiton, the Hook Road remains closed in both directions. That's because of a burst water main. In Warren Wood, Cranesway is still closed in both directions because of an ongoing investigation. And in Neasden, there are queues in both directions on Neasden Lane North, and that's because of the temporary traffic lights.
This is LBC. Hello? Hello? Are you there? I can't hear you. Are you on mute? Oh, is that... I don't know if it's frozen. Ah, that's better. No. Give up.
Struggling to stay connected? At Specsavers, we can help you hear the people who matter to you. Hearing tests are now available in store, where your safety comes first. To book your free appointment, search Specsavers Hearing or call your local store.
Hello? This is LBC.
Let's get back to the way we were, to fun, to the cinema, to gigs and galleries, the gym, the thrill of a stadium, to being with each other, to the things we love.
Testing is free, quick and vital to stop the spread of coronavirus. So let's get tested and get back to the things we love. If you're feeling unwell, get a free test now. Call 119 or go to nhs.uk.
The sprucing up prescription medication, as well as comprehensive medical care. With your help, we can change the future of MCI, as in mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease.
You have progressive memory loss. But here's what we can do.
To find out more about Recognition Health and taking part, go to brainandmindexperts.com.
As we open things up again, how do we keep safe? Max runs a cafe.
We've worked really hard to make the coffee shop COVID safe. Keep 2 meters apart, or 1 meter with extra precautions. Follow our new one-way system. Use the extra hand sanitizer. And try to stay at your table as much as possible. We can't wait to welcome everyone back. But please, remember the safety guidelines so we can all stay open.
Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives. Nick for Riot Breakfast with Thomas Warbrick on LBC. Call 0345 6060
Morning to you, 7:23 is the time. We'll be live to Aberdeen in just a few moments to hear about the local lockdown there, plus details on the inquest into Caroline Flack's death. You want to have your say too on working from home, why it is that UK workers are lagging behind our European friends. When it comes to getting back to the office, just 34% of workers in this country are now back at work in the office full time. Compare that to the rest of Europe, and we are way behind. The average across the 5 nations in Europe, UK, France, Germany, Italy and Spain is 68%. We're at 34%. Does that just mean we're better at working from home? Given as many business leaders say this, not just Martin Zorro, but he is a leader of a very big business, that actually productivity is still ticking on quite nicely. People are as effective at home as they are in the office. So why change it? Come on to your thoughts on that in just a moment. Front pages this morning, a general smorgasbord of stories across the papers. The Daily Telegraph to start with. Pupils face exam chaos. Life sentence head teachers raise concern over COVID-19 grading system as children are denied right of appeal. Following on from what we saw in Scotland yesterday, concerns now about what may happen to those results in England and Wales too. Very effective and affecting picture of the scene in Beirut, which looked frankly apocalyptic. We'll have more details on what Britain is doing to help that city out a bit later too. The Times, red tape to be slashed in planning revolution. Councils lose powers to block developments, quicker approval for homes, schools and hospitals. We'll speak to the Housing Secretary live. The Daily Mail, bridesmaid for Diana was guest on Epstein Island. An exclusive. I was young, naive and lucky to escape, says the now mother of 4, Clemmy Hambro. In the Metro, we want Andrew's law, says PC's wife. Grieving families campaign to lock police killers up for life. And we'll talk about that in more detail after 8. The Sun front page, my beautiful Caroline killed by show trial. This is Caroline Flack's mum yesterday telling her inquest that the Love Island star took her own life because the Crown Prosecution Service wanted a show trial over a fight with her boyfriend. The Guardian, rush planning shake-up will lead to more slums. Expert warns the eye-lost city, another powerful picture of Beirut. And the Daily Mirror, finding more to go it alone on the testing. Councils say government system doesn't work, and they will look to devise their own as more councils take matters into their own hands. Let's go up to a place where there has been a local lockdown imposed as a result of case numbers rising. Aberdeen, which has seen cafes and restaurants shut. Phil McDonald is LBC's reporter in Aberdeen for us. Phil, tell us the situation there this morning. Morning to you.
Well, Tom, it's a quiet morning on the streets of Aberdeen. Other than the seagulls making their usual racket, it's actually fairly silent. People in the Granite City are now waking up knowing that life will be very different. The freedoms that are being gradually restored here are once again gone for at least 7 days. Now, I'm currently standing on Belmont Street, which is a cobbled road lined with bars, cafes and restaurants. At its best, it's the beating cultural heart of Aberdeen, and it's actually been partly transformed in recent weeks Preston says he needs to be convinced.
I've actually written a letter about concerns I have around track and trace in the city. I know that there's bars that have been contacted by customers that have had COVID-19, but they haven't actually been contacted by any of the track and trace people. So I've raised concerns over that with the First Minister, so we're still waiting for the answers. But I think it's something that we need to make sure is right.
Now, all of this means a week of no trading for businesses in this area and the added uncertainty that comes with it, because there is no guarantee that these restrictions will be lifted in a week's time. Angela Kozak owns Cup, a cafe in the city centre.
Already, I'm fearful of the reopening because I felt that when we opened, we were giving the customers the competence to visit, whereas I feel now that that's maybe going to have a knock-on effect on them. Should they come back? Will they come back? It might take them longer to build the competence up, especially the elderly generation. And you've seen them coming out with their family and their grandchildren. And this last week I really noticed that. I feel when we reopen, that it's going to take them a lot longer.
And we know that extra police patrols are going to be taking place in the city centre to make sure people are following these rules.
Live in Aberdeen and with those seagulls in tow, Phil McDonald, many thanks indeed for your time. 7:28, let's look at this inquest into the death of Caroline Flack. The TV star left a note before her death saying she had wanted to find harmony with her boyfriend, Lewis Burton, according to this inquest. Mike Hughes is LBC's reporter who's been covering the inquest. Morning to you, Mike.
Morning, Tom. Well, yeah, yesterday was clearly a very difficult day for the friends and family of Caroline Flack, having to relive the harrowing details of her death. What was clear from the evidence that was presented to the coroner through statements and oral evidence was that Caroline Flack was in an extremely fragile state of mind with her mental health. For weeks leading up to her death, things really started to get on top of her after she was arrested for allegedly assaulting her boyfriend Lewis Burton last December. The inquest was told that Caroline struggled with the shame of being in court and found it hard to tune out of the press attention that the case was gathering. Her sister Jodie revealed that Caroline had actually tried to take her own life at least 4 times between her arrest in December and February. There were critical words towards the CPS from her mother Christine yesterday, who called the prosecution a show trial because Mr. Butler, who had called 999 and who had sustained an injury to his head, did say that he didn't want to pursue a prosecution. Lisa Ramsaren, who's the deputy chief crown prosecutor, said there was significant evidence to support a charge of actual bodily harm. But Christine Flack said Caroline had been let down by authorities because her mental health had rapidly declined from the point of being arrested right the way up until she took her own life. Now, we heard how a note was discovered in Caroline's flat after she died, which said she wanted to find harmony with Lewis Burton. There were questions yesterday about why paramedics who were called to her flat the night before she died, after she'd taken